Senate Standing Committee on Education will come to order. Members and guests, please silence your cell phones. We have overflow in room 171. As a reminder, if you want to speak to the committee, there's a sign-up sheet in the back corner. You have to sign up on the sign-up sheet. That'll be there about 2 minutes, and then we'll collect that. That's our normal procedure. At this time, do we have any members with introduction of special guests? Senator Thomas.
Thank you, Chairman West. And once again, I am proud to see numerous teachers here today from the Fayette County Public Schools. As I call their school, I'm going to ask them to stand and remain standing until I call all the teachers. I have students here today from the teacher. I have teachers here today, from the STEAM Academy, from Lafayette High School, from Northern Elementary High School, from Dixie Elementary, and from Tates Creek Middle School. Senator West, I ask that the Education Committee make these teachers feel welcome and again, thank them for their service as teachers educating our young people today.
Members, let's make these people feel welcome. I have two special guests, Peyton Truesdale and Angie Black. Are you in this room? If you would stand up and be recognized as well. These are community education leaders in my district, and I appreciate meeting with you and you being here today. Please make them feel welcome. Anyone else have special introductions? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Senator Carroll.
Here.
Senator Funky Fromeyer. Present. Senator Givens. Here. Senator Higdon. Senator Meredith. Here. Senator Neal. Present. Senator Stivers. Senator Thomas. Here. Senator Tishner. Here. Senator Wilson.
Here.
Senator Wise.
Here.
Vice Chair Williams. Chair West.
Here. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to remind members, let them know that we have about an hour to get through 6 bills. So this meeting will be very, very tight, even more so than normal. We have first on list here, Madison Griffin. If you would come forward. It's Madison. If you would sit down here and you got to turn the green light on there. State your name for the record and your organization. And I'll just warn you, this is how this committee works. You got about 3 or 4 minutes. And please proceed.
Just cut me off whenever.
we do that to everyone.
That's perfectly fine. My name is Madison Griffin. I am a senior at Mercer County High School and Trailblazer Academy, and I am from the Career and Technical Student Organization, HOSA, and I am the vice president. So I will just get started.
Please proceed.
Good morning. It is an honor to be here. I would like to take a moment and introduce myself. My name is Madison Griffin. I'm a senior at Trailblazer Academy and Mercer County Senior High School, located in Harrodsburg, Kentucky. I'm heavily involved in a variety of clubs, sports, and extracurricular activities, but my passion lies in the CTSO, HOSA Future Health Professionals. I have been involved with HOSA since my freshman year, and I decided to let this organization lead me in my leadership skills, where I took and ran for as vice president. And wow, can I tell you the door and opportunities this has opened. It is rare in today's world to have one-on-one experience with seasoned health professionals and those that want to pursue the same pathway as me. But that is just what I've had. I have been fortunate enough to learn and be mentored by some of the best, and I'm so thankful for. I guess you could say I was born into healthcare. I'm a 4th-generation healthcare professional in my family, who have all begun their careers at our local community hospital. The floors I walk on today are the same floors that my great-grandmother once did. I hold this place dearly to my heart. So, enough about me. Let's talk about Carl Perkins. Who is that? Is one of the comments I get from most students whenever I ask them about Mr. Perkins. But I take this as an opportunity to share my knowledge about Mr. Perkins. The role that Mr. Perkins has had in my educational opportunities is significant. Carl Perkins was born in 1912 in a rural area, Heinemann, Kentucky, where he became a teacher. Throughout his career, he noticed a lack of resources and necessities needed to obtain a successful education. He saw that the necessities were not there. In order to remedy this, he knew that he would need more education himself. This drove him to continue his education at the University of Louisville School of Law in search of a solution. After a successful graduation, his goals were now foreseeable. Before deployment in World War II, he served as the Commonwealth's 31st District Attorney, soon becoming the state representative, serving as the chairman of the Committee on Education and Labor for 17 years. During this time, he exceeded his goals. Before Perkins' death in 1984, he paved the way for students to achieve success in their careers. Perkins has left a legacy of continuously growing programs such as the Head Start program, the Federal Perkins Student Loan Program for the Underprivileged, and the Carl Perkins Act that allocates over $1 billion across the U.S. and is dedicated to allowing students access to career and technical education. His firsthand experience in a rural community laid a foundation for his success. His personal desires and needs facilitated his achievements. Without his dedication and ambition, I would have not had the opportunity to fulfill my educational goals as I have. I remember as a 13-year-old, we were asked by our guidance counselors, what career path do you want to choose? Now, if you can imagine being 13 years old and asking what I wanted to do for the rest of my life was a little intimidating. For most of us, we didn't know what we were eating today, let alone what we wanted to do when we grew up. Often, students choose a career path that they have little knowledge about. They then discover after graduating the last 4 years of school were focused on a career they have no desire to do. This is where state funding, along with the Carl Perkins Act, allowed for trade school opportunities. At my school, Trailblazer Academy, the state funding that we have received is 4 times greater than prior years, and this was crucial for students to start and get a head start in their careers and pathways. At my school, state funding has helped students to make towards their goals more accessible. Just in the health science pathways, state funding has allowed purchases such as first aid and blood-borne pathogen kits, along with new equipment in our lab. This allows students to work with updated equipment and to be able to follow along with changes that are happening in the workforce. Perkins funding allowed certifications such as phlebotomy, EKG, and Medicaid nursing assistant certification. I've been able to obtain my Medicaid nursing assistant certification alongside my peers and have been able to see the students in various pathways strive for their goals and what they want to do. Not only has the health science program helped obtain certifications and a head start on college credits, but has allowed me to fully be involved in HOSA. One of the requirements to receive Perkins funding is that you must be affiliated with HOSA. So with the Perkins Act, it has opened up a whole new world for students. With HOSA, students are able to venture into what they want to do as a future health professional. They're able to strengthen their leadership skills and their communication skills. I also had the amazing experience to advocate for HOSA and Perkins funding in Washington, where I was able to show my gratitude to legislators' work towards Perkins funding. And the act of the Carl Perkins because of the Carl Perkins Act opening the path to HOSA, I am able to be here to speak with you about the funding that I am so thankful for. I stand here today to be able to step back and see all the opportunities that have been opened for me that past students did not have without Perkins. So not only are the programs that Mr. Perkins has left behind inspirational, but they are stories of past, present, and future lives. I appreciate your time, and thank you for letting me be here.
Thank you, Madison.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
The interim committees aren't quite as rushed as this, so you're welcome back anytime in the interim, but we appreciate what you do and you're advocating. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
First up on the agenda, we have Senate Joint Resolution 98, Senator Stivers. State your name for the record and please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Robert Stivers, State Senator from the 25th Senatorial District. I want to express my appreciation for you allowing me to present this resolution before the committee. I will try to be brief. I didn't think it would create such reverberations throughout higher education in the state of Kentucky. But I'm going to give a little bit of historical background before I get into the resolution, but it is why this resolution I think is needed. In the spring of 1997, Senator Neal and I were the only two that were here at that time that have consistently served in the General Assembly that are in the Senate. Senator Williams was here and left soon after, but it was the extraordinary session of the spring of 1997 that Governor Paul Patton called us in to basically reform higher education. At that time, the community colleges were attached to the University of Kentucky, and it was his expression that they be separated and that we focus on them being research institutions, that the regionals create programs of distinction, and that the community colleges be more acclimated towards technical education. It was an interesting political dynamic because there was no party affiliation in that discussion on the Senate floor nor on the House floor. Myself and then Senator Williams were allied with Senator Ernesto Scorsone. Senator Neal, I think, was aligned with many Republicans, including Charlie Borders, who was probably one of the most staunch conservative socially senators in the state. It was a split not based on political philosophies at all. It was an odd set of circumstances that brought people to be on one side or another. Eventually, reforms were passed, creating the system we currently have. That system was to create a Council of Post-Secondary Education that was to be a coordinating body, because many states have a singular board that control higher education. Well, we have multiple boards that control our schools, including KCTCS, with the Council of Post-Secondary Education being a coordinating board for these schools to set a direction. There was a lot of political controversy when then Gordon Davies was brought in. People didn't like that fact of coordination, and to be quite honest with you, I think he was forced out of office and a new direction was set. But in the last 25 years, I believe our system has progressed in areas, other areas it has not. But if you think about the basic premise for which this system was set up, accessibility, affordability, the transferability, that an English 101 class at Murray would be an English 101 class that would be transferred without any loss of credits at UK, or even from a KCTCS campus to the University of Louisville. We were to be nimble, to ramp up and ramp down, so we would know in an ever-changing economy and an ever-changing need for employment status to train and retrain over 7 times in a typical career. These things were to be looked at on a regular basis to see if this system were that in the way of accessibility, affordability, seamlessness, nimbleness, and nobody has looked at it in the last 25 years. I have no preconceived ideas about where this should be, but CPE was envisioned to do this, and I think it's time to do it again. I just talked to Jay Morgan. He said he had some ideas. That's what this is for. Express ideas. Now, there is always has been the fact that there are 30-some counties in southeast Kentucky that are furthest away from any post-secondary education institution that is residential in nature and sponsored by the state. There are numerous and very quality programs through other independent colleges and universities there. There is a representation in the KCTCS. But if you look at regions that do have a post-secondary public education residential facility, they have high economic attainment levels in those areas. So with this, I came with a resolution that would look at it in it being the system as it is today and look at it to see if it is the system we need now. Because I can give you maybe the biggest example of how this has changed in the last 25 years is the remote worker. Pre-COVID, nationally, there were over 2 million people working remotely. During COVID, that went up to 60 million. Our educational system changed to have more remote online classes. Is that good? Maybe. Is it bad? Maybe. I don't know. But today, as we sit here, there are over 20 million jobs that people are doing or needing to be filled that are remote in nature. I will give a personal experience, and my children hate me doing this. I have a son, and most of you all have seen my children grow up here, who went through the technical pathway and has a master lineman status, has a substation tech status, going to school here and in Texas, various degrees. I have a daughter who is a master's level biomedical engineer who went through what we would define as the more technical, traditional track. So I see both. The questions become from my son, did I really need to take English 101? Or should I have taken a business management class? To my daughter, she has some of the same questions, but they have totally separate and distinct degrees. But they are both ready and prepared to have opportunities to have good living. When I said I have no preconceived notions as to what this should be, I do not. But I do have a goal. And that is every child, every non-traditional or traditional student, have all the things we talked about 25 years ago: accessibility, affordability, transferability, job preparedness. And so all I'm asking is that CPE, as they were envisioned 25 years ago, do the job. And I'm not saying anything against CPE. Do the job that they were envisioned to do. Look at the system, come back in a year, and make recommendations to us. Is this the best system we have? Should we tweak it? Should we change it? Should we overhaul it? Maybe, maybe not. But that's what this resolution does.
Thank you, Senator Stivers. We have a motion on the resolution. Before we do that, we have a question from Senator Wise. And I'll remind everyone before you start that we need to be really tight with questions today.
Very quickly, support the resolution, President Stivers. My one question is part of the study. I'm looking on page 3 of this, line 2, subsection C. The Commonwealth acquiring an existing private university in southeastern Kentucky to possibly serve as a new regional. As one who's got 2 private institutions in my Senate district, very proud of Campbellsville University and Lindsey Wilson College. I didn't know where the cutoff in southeastern Kentucky possibly is as part of that study. I'm interested in this, but also maybe looking into where does that defined as?
Well, very good question in my mind. You know, and back when this discussion was started 25 years ago, the discussion was, should the University of Pikeville come into the system? much as Northern Kentucky University came into the system in the Nunn administration, potentially locating something in Hazard or someplace else. That is not, again, for us to determine, but looking at the socioeconomic realities of a region which has been hard hit and probably has always been defined as one of the most economically disadvantaged regions. I think that, from my perspective, is the region they look at. I consider that South Central Kentucky, what you're looking at. But
Thank you,
I
President
understand
Stivers.
that,
Just clarifying.
But there is no conclusion, and I want to say this because I got called from some people that said, "Oh, are you all going to condemn our property?" No, I don't think anybody's thinking about condemning or taking. That would have to be a mutual agreement, much as Lee's College, which was a Presbyterian-affiliated junior college, negotiated to sell their property to the University of Kentucky at one time.
We have no further questions. We have a motion on the bill from Senator Wilson. Do we have a second? Second, Senator Wise. Mariah, please call the roll.
Senator Carroll.
Aye.
Senator Funky Fromeyer. Senator Givens. Senator Higdon. Senator Meredith. Senator Neal. Senator Stivers. Senator Thomas. Senator Tishner. Senator Williams.
Aye.
Senator Wilson. Senator Wise.
Aye.
Chair West.
Aye.
Chairman, motion for consent, if the sponsor would.
I was going to ask Senator Stivers if he would prefer to go on consent, and he's saying no. So, Senate Joint Resolution 98 passes with a vote of 13 ayes and 0 noes. Thank you, President Stivers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Next up, we have Senate Bill 138, an act relating to substitute teacher certification. Senator Tishner, as you're coming to the front here, we're limiting
Yes.
you to 5 minutes. And if it makes you feel any better, I've got 2 bills on here. I'm limiting myself to 5 minutes.
I don't think I'll need that.
So please proceed.
Okay. Lindsay Tishner, Senator from District 6. Just as there is a teacher shortage, there's a substitute teacher shortage. So this is a bill to broaden the regulations on certificates for substitute teaching. Just very simply, it establishes guidelines that will help the EPSB improve certification of substitute teachers. It creates 3 certification categories for substitute teachers: a 1-year certificate, which they must have a minimum of 15 college semester hours in any subject area, which is renewable annually. A 3-year certificate possesses a bachelor's degree in any subject area, also renewable on 3 years. Neither of those would be valid for full-time employment or replacing a teacher of record for more than 20 consecutive days. And then there is a 5-year certificate for someone who has or has previously held a Kentucky teaching certificate with a bachelor's degree. We need this bill. The superintendents and school boards recognize that there's a shortage, and this would broaden the certification process to fulfill those empty spots in our substitute teaching positions.
Excellent job. Well within guidelines. We have a motion and a second on the bill. Mariah, would you please call the roll on Senate Bill 138?
Senator Carroll. Senator Funky Fromeyer.
Aye.
Senator Givens. Senator Higdon. Senator Meredith. Senator Neal. Senator Stivers. Senator Thomas.
Aye.
Senator Tishner.
Aye.
Senator Williams. Senator Wilson.
Aye.
Senator Wise. Chair West.
Aye. We have 13 aye votes, 0 no votes on Senate Bill 138. Congratulations. I think we will not be putting that on consent right now. It'll proceed through the process. Next up, we have Senate Bill 145, an act relating to interscholastic athletics. Senator Funky Fromeyer.
Kira.
If everyone at the table would state your name for the record, turn the green button on there, and proceed when you're ready.
Kira Kobita.
Dan Kubita.
And I'm Senator Shelley Funky Fromeyer from District 24. And meeting Dan and Mom is around here, Laura as well. Kobita, I didn't introduce them, but they are from Campbell County. And we're asking you to consider Senate Bill 145 today. And you'll find that will be concise, but we also have the Chief Executive Officer of the Kentucky High School Athletic Association. So Julian Tackett, if we need a deeper dive on some specifics, but he won't officially testify today unless you would like him to.
We might go over the 5 minutes if you.
Okay.
I'm just joking.
And what we're recognizing is there was a very meaningful bill allowing transfer of students. But what we're asking you to look at is page 6, section 2. It's line 15. And we're asking that to be stricken through. We've had some further discussion that there are some KHSAA considerations that we want to take to the interim. But I'm going to ask Dan Kubita to share with us why this is so important to Kira that this get struck through now, and then allow us to dig in deeper in the interim.
Yeah, thank you. So I just wanted to start off by introducing Kira again. So Kira Kubita is my daughter. She is 13. She's an 8th grader in Campbell County Middle School in Northern Kentucky. I also have a son who's not here today. He's 15 years old, and he's a junior at Campbell County High School. And just a quick backstory a little bit. So I definitely want to thank the state of Kentucky and the high schools in the Northern Kentucky area for allowing out-of-district student transfers. As you probably know, if your parents, kids growing up in the same house, under the same rules, under the same parents, turn out to be very, very different. You know, different career paths. We heard the fellow speaking before, his daughter and his son. And as our kids have gone through the educational system, gone through different schools, the schools are exactly the same way. They're very, very different. They have different strengths, different opportunities. So having an open school system like we've seen in Northern Kentucky, where our children can apply to what aligns with their strengths, their goals, and their needs, has been fantastic. So 3 years ago, we went through the process with our son when he was in middle school and evaluated multiple schools and found that our home resident school fit him perfectly. So that's where he's at right now. The past couple of years, we've been evaluating Kira through her middle school years on which high school is the best high school to go through. And based on her academics, she challenges the system a little bit more. She needs a stronger curriculum. I think she needs more challenging teachers and peers as she goes through her class than my son did. I think she's looking for schools, or was looking for schools that basically had partnered with universities. So she had opportunities there either to take credits while she's in high school or move forward. And then extracurricular activities is huge for her. She's a student athlete. So she's been swimming most of her life. And even at age 13, she's already started 2-a-days. So she wakes up at the crack of 4:30 a.m. in the morning, goes off to practice, goes back to school, goes back to practice again in the afternoon, and then does her studies. So she's really disciplined, dedicated, and that's important to her career, or into her high school career, basically. So we basically went through the process of evaluating a school outside the district. We registered her for that. She got accepted. And while that process was going forward, this homeschool or this school choice bill was processing through also. So we knew a little bit about it. We understood that tuition would come over, which was good. It was good for us. I mean, it relieved a little bit of that burden. I think that's a huge win for some families because I think it's a go, no-go when they're looking at other schools. But we also recognize that there is a section in the bill that would restrict her from playing interscholastic sports for the first year that she transferred in. And I think most people would look at that as an opportunity missed. So, yeah, maybe she wouldn't maybe she wouldn't be able to participate that first year, but she would have her sophomore, junior, and senior year there. So just an opportunity missed. But it was more personal for me. So my parents moved from Chicago to Cincinnati when I was a freshman in high school. And different set of rules. I know I was transferring out of state. But I got to that school the first day, I didn't know anyone. And so the sophomores, juniors, seniors, they're all back to the same school the next year. Freshmen were coming into feeder schools. I went to get on the bus. I didn't know anybody. It seemed like everybody knew somebody else. I went into classes. It seemed like everybody knew somebody. I didn't. Lunchtime, I went in, and it was a lunchtime room, about 800 students, probably 100 plus tables. I didn't know anybody. I sat by myself. So I did that for 2 straight weeks, which seemed like months, before the coach that I had been introduced to that summer recognized me and asked me why I was sitting by myself at a table. And I said, I don't know anyone. So he said, come with me, put me in with the swimmers at that table. And that was great. I had a table, but swim season hadn't started yet. So I was just another kid, new face at those tables. And I still wasn't integrated into the system. I wasn't accepted truly in the system until that sport started at that point in time. And then I started feeling included. I was part of a team. I was part of the school. And I saw my friends in the hallway. I recognized some on the bus. And that's really when I started feeling like I was part of that system. The fear I have as Kira goes into school is exactly what would have happened to me if I didn't have that coach or didn't have that opportunity my first year. You know, what would have happened? And I can remember the feeling that I had before I was on the team of fear and disappointment with my parents for moving me down. It just was going down a dark way. And I don't want to subject that to my daughter. I mean, she's going into the same school. She won't know anybody. All the kids basically have been at that school. And if she's not allowed to play sports, obviously she's got her club team to go to, but that doesn't bring her as part of that team in that school. So I fear for other students too, because I'm sure many of these out-of-district transfers are probably student athletes. And that's just a concern. So I certainly support redacting that section out of the current law and support Senate Bill 145.
Thank you so much. All joking aside, we have Commissioner Tackett and Mr. Collins. You're signed up to speak. Do you wish to speak on the? Okay. We have 2 questions. Senator Higdon.
It's more of a comment. This does put it back to Kentucky High School Athletic Association choices.
Yes, sir.
I'm in my 21st year, and I've worked with them forever. They always do a good job, and 99 and 9/10% of the time, they get the decisions right when there's a transfer involved. So I applaud them, and I applaud you for bringing this bill to put that responsibility back to them. Thank you.
Senator Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to understand this, and you may have dealt with this. I'm not sure. Maybe the gentleman from the Athletic Association could do this. Why is that rule in place in the first place? What does it do to limit a individual who transfers 1 year but is eligible otherwise? What is the rationale behind that?
Commissioner Tackett's coming forward. It's Senator Neal. I think I can speak briefly. It's an unintended consequence of a bill we passed last year in the interdistrict movement, but Commissioner Tackett can speak on that.
Thank you, Senator West. That's exactly it. It was not intended to affect as many students as it did 2 years ago. When the bill was passed, it had an implementation phase. I don't think anybody really saw what was coming out of the pandemic and the amount of student movement.
So prior to this, there was no restriction?
On 8th to 9th grade, no, sir. There still is not. It's been a legislative directive to give that student free choice, 8th to 9th grade.
Thank you.
Senator Wise.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner, thank you for the work you and Chad do, especially trying to clear up a lot of this issue. There is or is not an emergency clause. I just want to make sure in terms of, is there anything in here that would immediately go to effect, or is this waiting on passage later.
That's a good question. I didn't consider an emergency clause.
I'm
and
not
what difference that
encouraging
would
or
make.
discouraging. I'm just asking.
We haven't written one in, but I would certainly be open to a committee sub or a floor amendment
I
sub
think
to that
Commissioner
effect.
Commissioner Tackett wants to
Would
jump.
encourage you to think long and hard, because you're going to subject people in the spring to a different rule than the fall and winter had versus starting next school year.
Understand and I know with enrollment it's different at each
Exactly.
school. That's what I just want to make sure.
You're exactly
I
right.
think the bill the way it is good. I just want to make sure that there was not possibly an emergency clause. Just checking. Thank you.
If you could stay there, Commissioner, I'm jumping in real quick. So to be clear, because of the school calendar and the way a bill, June 30th, when it goes into effect, your recommendation is to keep it the way it is.
Yes, as far as the
and
timing. and
no emergency clause.
That way, you get through this school year, parents have already made choices, starts clean in the fall.
Okay, thank you. Senator Carroll.
And Mr. Chairman, my question was the same, and I know kids are sitting in the audience watching games right now that want to play. I'm not sure I agree with waiting and not doing an emergency clause now.
So it's, as I said, that would just be consideration for you.
Yeah, I don't really understand what difference it would make. It's going to be mid-season some sport when it happens. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman,
Please proceed.
if I may take that into further consideration in conversation and perhaps create a floor amendment, also in conversation with about 9 superintendents, I have 11 independent school districts in District 24. I'm seeing real strong support recognizing that this is about educating the whole student, and sports are a piece of educating the whole student. So we don't really see this as the concern that might exist of recruiting. We see it more as an educational miss, and Dan does a great job taking it one step further. It really is a mental, emotional health of our students.
And I'm assuming Commissioner Tackett would agree to a full consultation on the bill if it moves over to the Senate floor.
I was open.
Seeing no further questions, we have a motion on the bill from Senator Wilson. Do we have a second? Second. We have a second from Senator Wise. Mariah, would you please call the roll?
Senator Carroll.
Aye.
Senator Funke Fromeyer.
Aye.
Senator Givens.
My vote.
Please proceed.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. And I was trying to get recognized for a question. I understand the need for us to move rapidly. I'm supportive of the bill. I do have some follow-up questions. Commissioner, I'd like to talk with you after this. I applaud the family for the purpose of this, very much so. Conversely, we do have families, and I'm confident the Commissioner would testify to this as well. We have families that move for the purpose of sport. Recruiting does happen, sadly enough, of concentrations of athletes to form super teams. Largely, if my recollection is correct, the language was added a couple of years ago, as Commissioner indicated, as we sought to permit district-to-district transfer for the purpose of academic reasons. We didn't want the district-to-district transfer to be happening and or movement like this for the purpose of athletics. And we may have oversliced. I'm comfortable with 8th graders and 9th graders. Once they enroll in a district, they stay in that district and they can't move after 9th grade. I understand certainly the need to move prior to enrolling in high school. So I may work with you, Senator, on helping continue to refine this. I don't know that I want to redact it as much as refine it, but I'm open to the conversation continuing, and therefore I vote aye. Thank you.
Senator Higdon. Aye. Senator Meredith. Aye. Senator Neal. Senator Stivers. Senator Thomas. Aye. Senator Tishner. Aye. Senator Williams.
Aye.
Senator Wilson.
Aye.
Senator Wise.
Aye.
Chair West.
Aye. Senate Bill 145 passes with 12 aye votes, 0 no votes. As was discussed previously, this will not go on consent because we have extra refining that needs to be accomplished. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Next up on the docket, we have 2 bills. I'm going to go ahead and announce those now, as my co-chair can take over here in a second. I'm going to move down there, Senate Bill 156 and Senate Bill 202.
Senator West, would you introduce yourself and your guest, please?
Steve West, 27th District.
Mickey Ray, Chief Academic Officer at the Department of Education. Mickey Ray, Chief Academic Officer at the Kentucky Department of Education.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm presenting Senate Bill 156, but there is a committee sub on 156, and I would ask that that be adopted.
Have a motion? Second? All in favor? Opposed? Motions, committee subs adopted.
Thank you. Much of what I'm going to say is for the benefit of the newer members. The people that have been on the committee for a while, you've heard about this before. This is nothing new. Senate Bill 156 is setting up a new statewide reading research center. And Mr. Chairman, if you would keep me to the same time limits as other members have been held to, we could talk a long time, but I know time is tight. We passed Senate Bill 9 last year that dealt with early literacy, and that is currently being implemented. As part of the overall, strategy of the state, under KRS 164, in many years past, there was set up a collaborative center for literacy. The purpose of that center was to be a clearinghouse of information for teachers and students, and really bring all the data together, bring all the appropriate programs together under one roof so it could be signed off on, studied, and sent out to our teachers. During the interim period, through government contract review, the CCLD at University of Kentucky was their contract was not renewed. And so there's a void currently under statute under KRS 164. In the interim, I along with Co-Chair Tipton in the House, met with Mickey Ray at KDE, and we asked for their input on setting up a new center to fill that void. She had some fantastic ideas, and most of this is the work of KDE. And to make it really quick, this new center would be a third-party independent administrator. An RFP would be done to pick the best entity, and then they would do the work of providing the requirements of 164, and they would be the third party who would become the clearinghouse and provide the information for all of our teachers out there as it relates to early literacy.
Motion on the bill.
I'm going to stop there, and if Mickey has anything to add, please proceed.
Any comments?
Thank you. I would just say we feel that this legislation is critical because Kentucky needs the support of a reading research center as intended in statute. And when we think about the research agenda, we need information on evidence-based, high-yield instructional practices, on coaching strategies, on high-quality instructional resources. There's a section in the statute that talks about how the research center will provide evidence around reading programs and intervention programs that will eliminate achievement gaps, that will be effective in terms of schools with differing characteristics, and in cost effectiveness and showing outcomes of programs that show sustained positive outcomes from students. We need that, and it would help us to better implement not only Read to Succeed, but reading research and supports for students, families, even adult learners throughout the P20 continuum. So we feel that this is just critical legislation for supporting the literacy efforts and meeting our statewide literacy goals for the success and benefit of students across the Commonwealth.
Thank you. I believe Senator Meredith has a question.
Yes, please, very briefly. Again, looking at this and having been involved with the contract and government contract review, it looks like it's going to be a reiteration of the previous group who was responsible for this, the Collaborative Council. To me, the substantive changes this is on page 3, section line 13, section 3. just render the major differences. Now there's going to be annual goals and measurable objectives, which previously we have not had. And this will be reported to our legislature for us to formulate future policy. And that's what it's been liking in the past.
And I would just add, Senator Merritt, another significant change is that the contract per the legislation would be for 5 years, and so it would open it up to another round of competitive build after that particular point.
All right, good. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Have a motion from Senator Wise. Do I hear a second? Please call the roll.
Senator Carroll.
Aye.
Senator Funky Fromeyer. Senator Givens. Senator Higdon. Senator Meredith. Senator Neal. Senator Stivers. Senator Thomas. Senator Tishner.
Can I explain my yes vote? We've had a group in my county and my district working on this legislation specifically, and they've been here lobbying Kentucky reading reform. This is very needed. It tightens up SB 9 from last year. I think it's going to be a great addition to improving our reading scores in the state. So thank you for bringing this forward, Senator West.
Senator Williams.
Aye.
Senator Wilson.
Aye.
Senator Wise.
Aye.
Chair West.
Motion passes 12-0. Do I hear a motion for consent? No. Very good. Okay. Thank you very much for your time. Mr. Chairman, we now have your bill, Senate Bill 202. Is there anybody that's going to join you for testimony, or you
I
carrying
believe
this
so. Yes, Jim Flynn is here
Okay.
to testify as well.
If he would, oh, sorry. If he would introduce himself for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Jim Flynn. I'm the Executive Director of the Kentucky Association of School Superintendents.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn. Please proceed.
Steve West, District 27. You have before you Senate Bill 202. Mr. Chairman, I believe there's also a committee sub on 202 as well.
Do I hear a motion to adopt?
Motion.
Second? Would anybody please vote? Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Committee subs adopted. Please proceed.
Thank you. I'm going to make it really quick, give the background on the bill, and then I'm going to flip it over to Jim to discuss more of the details. Senator Wise and myself, we made the circuit visiting various superintendents groups over the interim, various co-ops. Co-Chair Tipton and I discussed this with a lot of superintendents. Kind of a recurring theme through all those meetings. What's going on in the system? What are your problems? So there were two main answers, discipline and Senate Bill 202. Those were two primary concerns. And so anecdotally, we know there are huge problems with discipline across the board in many of our schools. So Co-Chair Tipton and I sat down with Jim and other representatives of the Superintendent's Association during the interim period. Well, I'm sorry, it was during the beginning of session. And we told them, we realize, it's not there's no silver bullet. There's about 15 things you need to do to help the system legislatively. But please, you guys go talk about it. You meet, come back to us, give us some low-hanging fruit. What is something we can do this session to help with the problem? And Senate Bill 202 is their work product. It's what they presented to us. And so I'll just flip it over to Jim, let you talk about it.
Thank you, Chairman. And again, thank you all for considering this bill proposal. As I work with superintendents and other educators across the state, I consistently hear this theme of classroom discipline. And it's an important issue. It connects to student learning, connects to student attendance, which of course also connects to student learning, and also our funding in our schools. It connects to working conditions for our teachers, which impacts the workforce shortages that we're dealing with in our schools. And it also connects to family and community confidence in our schools. And we need this proposed legislation to rebalance the scales so that the rights of the offenders do not supersede the rights of the other students in the classroom, some of whom are victims in this case, and the rights of the professionals who are leading and operating our classrooms and our schools. And this bill addresses some foundational issues that I think will help. It reconciles some statutory language with some old Attorney General's opinions that kind of conflict with that a little bit, and some regulations that have also have limited the range of options. And it provides for boards and districts to address the needs of the students that might violate school and or district policy, but at the same time does so in a way that they have options to consider the full ramifications of what's going on in those classrooms and schools. And if this is passed, it will not change any of the federal laws related to students with disabilities. It will not do anything to prevent districts from being accountable and looking at disproportionality issues and those kinds of things. It will simply give us the latitude to provide services to students who violate school and district policies, but to also look at that in terms of the larger impact to our classrooms and schools and districts. And so I'll be happy to answer any questions about specifics, but we really appreciate you all considering this bill proposal.
Mr. Chairman, the gist of the bill is that it gives superintendents and boards more flexibility on expulsions. You know, we've heard a lot of news stories recently about how hemmed in they are in certain situations. So this gives them a lot more flexibility.
Very good. Seeing no questions, do I have a motion? Got a motion? Oh, excuse, I'm sorry. Senator Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Under the current circumstances, you used the term hemmed in, Senator. I'm trying to understand the dynamic there. I heard what you said before about what it affects, having the flexibility, having an alternative place for those students so they're not disrupting the class, so that they are still in a process where they can be engaged educationally, where there are security issues, I assume, associated with that as well, on and on and on. I'm trying to understand the dynamic here, because at some point in there, somebody's making a decision in the classroom, and I guess at the next level, however that's handled inside the building. So I'm just trying to understand the dynamic there.
I'll start out with a brief example. So I don't know personally all the details, but there was a situation in Northern Kentucky where a student committed a horrendous act, and they went through the expulsion process, and the superintendent, they basically had no choice but to place that student back in the same school. And it would have been a total disruption of the entire school. This bill allows for an alternative program. The superintendent could have handled that through an alternative program. Am I correct on?
Yes. So, like in current statute, there's language for certain things that say you must expel for no less than 12 months. But then there's been Attorney General's opinions that say you can't expel for more than the remainder of the year or no more than 12 months. And then there's been some regulations that limit like what services, like virtual learning services, can't be compelled as a service option. And what we're asking for is to have the full range of alternative placement options. This bill even provides for that in lieu of expulsion. There could be, an option that way, but also when they are expelled and they return from expulsion, then there would be a range of placement options so they can consider that child's needs and also the impact on the larger school environment, so that all those factors can be considered in their decision of how they best educate that child.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, it
Proceed.
appears there are a myriad of circumstances depending on where you are, the degree of what, and then who's making the decision, how disruptive it's judged to be the child, so forth. There's a lot of area here. I just feel a little discomfort because I can't get my hands around it. I understand the idea of having some flexibility to deal with circumstances and come up with the best result for everybody, sort of concept. But that's okay. I have to do a little more research.
Any other questions? Seeing no other questions, would you please call? We have a motion from Senator Meredith, a second, Senator Tishner. Please call the roll.
Senator Carroll.
Aye.
Senator Funke Fromeyer. Senator Givens. Senator Higdon. Senator Meredith. Senator Neal.
I'm going to explain my past at this point in time. I want to do a little more research, look into a little more. It doesn't mean I might not vote it down on the floor if it gets to that, but I'm going to pass it this time.
Senator Stivers. Senator Thomas. Senator Tishner. Senator Williams.
Aye.
Senator Wilson. Senator Wise.
Aye.
Chair West.
Aye.
Thank you. The bill passes 11-1-1. Mr. Chairman, we'll wait for you to assume your chair.
Last bill we have on the docket is Senate Bill 247. Senator Givens. Please announce your name for the record. The floor is yours. Please proceed.
Senator David Givens, 9th Senate District. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for the chance to present Senate Bill 247 for your consideration. As you look at academic performance across school districts, one thing we know through a substantial body of evidence is the impact of transients on academic success. Multiple studies over time have clearly drawn the correlation between a student's continued matriculation in the same school and then his or her success in that school. It's a combination of all the things that we know and presume to be correct. The same friends, the same teachers, the same staff, the same lunchroom. The stability of a student staying in a school has a direct impact on their academic success. What's interesting is that recent studies have made it clear it not only impacts that student's success, but the classmates' success. To have a student stay in a school impacts the students around that student. Studies show that very clearly. This piece of legislation targets, through the definition, it targets students in grades 1, 2, and 3 that qualify for free or reduced lunch. And it says when that student changes his or her residence during the school year within that same district, the family can request that the student stay enrolled in that school that they were in initially. It also then, with the addition of paragraph 3, makes clear that if that student does remain enrolled in the original school, the district shall provide transportation from the new residence. We're changing the assumption. The assumption is that when you move, you have to move schools. We're changing that assumption to say, because we know the impacts on these young students, formative time in their life, relationships being built, needing stability, we're now changing that assumption to say, if you move, you can stay if you wish. That's the essence of the bill. Mr. Chairman, I'd be glad to entertain any questions.
Senator Neal.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have a question here because I get the rationale of this.
Sure.
It makes sense in that. Are there studies or anything that support the conclusion that this has an adverse effect? Just simplistically off the top of my brain, I'm thinking, well, getting uprooted and all that can have an effect. But I'm just wondering if there's something that supports that particular piece from some studies or evaluations, et cetera.
As I prepare to answer, let me clarify your question just a little. Studies about the positive effect of a student staying in the school they're in if they wish to, is that the sort of study?
Either or.
There are lots of bodies of evidence and substantial number of studies that if that student could stay in that same school, he or she would academically perform better than moving to a new school.
Thank you.
But again, if the student needs to leave that school for some situation related to the school environment, this is all about the parents saying they'd like for the student to stay.
Senator Thomas.
Senator Givens, this goes back to an earlier point you made about schools recruiting and trying to build super teams. But I'm curious as to why you didn't at least go up to grades 8. I could understand why you might want to cut off at grade 8, but you just mentioned the first three grades here. I'm just curious why not 4 through 8? What was it about your preparation of this bill that said I'm going to cut this off at grade 3?
Sure. So this is what I would affectionately call a David Givens toe dip. I don't want to go quite too far. I'd love to go up to grade 8. I need to know that we can succeed in doing this within the confines and the challenges a district as large as a Jefferson County district may face in meeting these requirements, or a Fayette County district may face. In a Greene County district, we've got one elementary school. It's not going to impact us. So I'm cautious to say, let me make sure that we can get it right for grades 1, 2, and 3 in those really formative years before we go further. But I'd love to go further at some point.
Thank you, Senator Givens. We have no further questions. I would ask at this time Mariah to call the roll. Oh, we need a motion, don't we? Senator Carroll has a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second from Senator Tishner. Now call the roll.
Senator Carroll.
Aye.
Senator Funky Fromeyer. Aye. Senator Givens. Senator Higdon.
Aye.
Senator Meredith. Senator Neal. Senator Stivers. Senator Thomas. Senator Tishner. Senator Williams. Senator Wilson. Senator Wise. Chair West.
Aye. Senate Bill 247 passes with 11 aye votes, 0 no votes. I'm assuming, Senator Givens, you would not want this on consent.
Mr. Chairman, because of the number of pieces of legislation we've got moving and the constraints of time, let's go ahead and put it on consent. But I do want to caution members of the committee, there's been some discussions about trying to make certain we're not causing any headaches for large districts. So there may be some conversations that result in a floor amendment that would pull it off, but fine to go on consent for now. Thank you for your vote and support.
I'll make the motion for consent. Do we have a second? Second. All those in favor, aye. All opposed, nay. Ayes have it. It's on consent. Thank you.